everyone. I'm happy to be back with you for another edition of Featured Teachers, brought to you by the American TESOL Institute. My name is Jason Levine, also known as Fluency MC, and our featured teacher for the month of February is Carys Cooke from English Arts Academy, and she does a whole lot of other stuff too that we're going to talk about. So welcome, Carys.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hi, Jason. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
So am I. It's our great pleasure. And we connected, I believe, first on Instagram. You know, I'm really passionate now about bringing teachers on who are reaching so many learners through places like Instagram and TikTok, and you know, with short videos and you know, inspiring content and messages. So it's great to see all the work you're doing there. It's just growing and growing. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you live, because I don't think where you're from and where you live are the same. And then maybe a little bit about how you got into English teaching.
Yeah, sure. So for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Carys, and I'm from Liverpool, which is situated in northwest England. But as Jason said, I do currently live in Greece, on the island of Crete, which is lovely. And I got into teaching about 10 years ago, and I actually kind of fell into it. So I graduated university, and I knew that for me, it was really, really important. I wanted to travel, and you know, through privilege and being lucky, I was able to. And so I first got a teaching job in Taiwan, and I just fell in love with it. And I had been teaching as part of my degree, teaching drama in schools, which I loved as well. And that probably we'll talk a little bit more about that later, about the arts. So yeah, so I kind of fell into it. I fell in love with teaching. And then I kind of just continued teaching in various places, in schools, online. I had a stint in Italy where I was working for a theatre company where we went and put on shows, and then did an English class afterwards, which was just amazing, just a dream. And then it was roughly almost 2 years ago now that I was like, I want to be able to reach more people. And also, I loved all my previous jobs, but often when you work in a school, there's rules and there's regulations, and a lot of the time you're getting students from A to B as quickly as possible because they have exams to take and they have to hit a certain mark and be scored in a certain way, which, you know, right or wrong, that's just how often things are done. But for me, I wanted to kind of go off on my own and teach the way that I wanted to teach and connect with students in the way that I think is right.
And is part of that because they don't really get to be necessarily like, or what is B, right? Is B really?
Exactly, yeah, I think that's phrased it really well. Yeah, I think sometimes you're pigeonholed a little bit in school. And if you don't really do well in a test, you can be classed as stupid or dumb. And often in schools, they don't put emphasis on the arts, and that's kind of like an elective, or they can choose to do it as an after-school hobby, but there's not really that environment where we encourage the arts. Right. And for me, that's just something that I'm extremely passionate about. So, you know, it just meant for me to start my own academy, really. And it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but I'm loving it so far.
Great. And those classes you have and the students that you have, are you supporting students who are also taking English classes in person usually, or are these students who, you know, you are their teacher exclusively, or is it a mix?
You know what, it was varied. So I've worked in students who were coming to sort of a TEFL institute, so they'd go to their regular school and then they'd come to a TEFL academy. I've also worked in public schools where I was teaching English as their main source of.
But I mean, especially now, I'm curious about what you're doing now. Are you, the students you have, are they your students exclusively, if you know what I mean, or are they like they're doing everything with you think, or are they also in a program somewhere else and what you're doing is supplementary, or is it depend?
It's really varied, to be honest. So I wouldn't want to say, oh, most students are coming to me who are also studying IELTS. I tend to get most of my students come to me who are looking for more confidence with speaking English, and
Okay.
they want to kind of be able to express themselves. And it might be because they want to move to an English speaking country, or for a job, or for an exam. And actually a lot of students that I teach live in the UK, and they've just moved to the UK, and then obviously they're thrust into this environment where it's all English. They suddenly are like, oh, there's so many slang words and idioms that I don't know. So I find I work with a lot of students who've moved to the UK who are struggling to maybe slot in to society. But it's quite varied, to be honest.
But it's just because you anticipated my next question, which was, where do most of your students come from, their countries, their cultures, their languages. So you mentioned people who've gone to the UK to prepare for tests or to be in English programs there. Is there any particular cultural background or language background that's, most represented, or is it really diverse?
Yeah, it's really diverse. I think if you looked on my social media pages, most students come from Asia, I would say. But a lot of maybe more my private students, or the ones who participate in my courses, a lot of them tend to be more South American.
Okay.
So, which is really fun when you're trying to organize live classes and you've got these opposite time zones, and you're thinking, when can I do it? So it is really varied, to be honest, which I love. And I love seeing, all the countries where people come from, because it's awesome. It's something that you couldn't, it's what you dream of when you start your own English business, really.
Well, let's get into I have a few questions, well, many questions, but a few really important ones. Definitely, let's start off with the fact that you have this English Arts Academy. It's not just an English academy. What does that mean, English Arts Academy?
Yes, it's a good question. So so as I said, my background is in the arts. So I studied film and theatre at university with an association of schools. I went into schools for a lot of it to teach drama. And I grew up going to drama classes, and I absolutely love them. And I honestly think that's probably a big part of who I am today, about being able to communicate fairly well with other people, and being able to be confident enough to have a conversation with people, and even confident enough to share videos online, which I'm sure you have found. It takes a bit of courage and bravery, and not taking yourself too seriously. And I just think it's one of the best ways to learn English is to incorporate the arts. But one thing I've noticed from calling it the arts is often people maybe just think I'm talking about just singing, or just dance, or just the theatre. But I think personally, for me, the arts incorporates so much more. It incorporates cooking, sport, culture. Basically, everything can be art. It's like anything that's a hobby, I incorporate as the art. I just use art as sort of the umbrella heading, if you like.
Yeah, so you're thinking, it's almost more like skills.
Yeah, exactly.
Like whether it's a skill that's more, visual arts, all the way to, like you said, cooking, or something. Or actually more into the areas, like you said, sports. I mean, where you're developing skills, you're using talent or developing skills to perform. I mean, it's really about performance. And I talk a lot about the difference between studying a language, practicing the language, and performing the language, or using, right? And how, like you said, if you're in front of people doing something live, that's performance. That's that's when you're using the language. And where does that, how well will you perform, whether it's tennis, piano, or an English conversation? It depends how much you've practiced and you're ready. And a lot of that is involved, obviously, in the arts.
Yeah, and I think as well that that leads into life, because when we speak in our first language, in our mother tongue, when you're going to a shop and asking someone for something, if you make a mistake, you have to keep going. You can't replay that moment. And I think that's where the art comes into play, because it gives you that confidence and that self-belief to be like, well, I made a mistake, but actually that's okay.
Hmm.
It's how I recover from this mistake and speak more naturally. And also, I don't know if you find with English, it's about having a feel for the language. So it's about being able to express yourself through your facial expressions, through your body language,
Absolutely.
because that really gives the listener, they know how you feel then, like what the point is you're trying to put across, what your
Right.
mood is. And I think that's really important. I think that's what performance gives you. It gives you that power to be able to express yourself in the way you want to be expressed.
That's right. But
Would you agree with that, or
yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. The area that interests me a lot, and I really want to get into, and this is the perfect moment, is what, like you said, it depends on having confidence. Like not everyone is going to go and make a mistake in English and feel like, hey, that's okay, and keep going and improvise. What's required to get to that point?
I think it's baby steps. I
Okay.
think often when we're doing anything new, we want to be able to run before we can walk. And I think it's about setting these like manageable goals. I often find that I think, and maybe it's part of the industry's problem as well. Of often students say, I want to be fluent in 30 days. They want to have these really, really big goals that I just think are unachievable in such a short time frame.
Definitely.
So it's about finding what's stepping out of the comfort zone for you. So it may be, instead of sending a text on WhatsApp, for you it might be then start sending a voice note, because
Mm.
you may find that uncomfortable. And then once you've mastered that, you realize it's not that scary. It's moving on to the next step, which is to then try and have a telephone conversation with someone, or reach out and try and find a language exchange partner. And then you would start to have a weekly Zoom chat with them. And once they've mastered, if you think, oh, that's quite easy for me, then you move on to the bigger and the broader steps
Mhm.
of maybe joining a hobby online right now, trying to talk more in English, whether it is to do with cooking, or theatre, whatever it is. So it's about finding the level you're starting at, and then building on that level. And
Mm.
then every week you have a new goal, a new task. But these are all manageable, but all like bite-sized chunks, which I think we can all handle that.
It's great advice, and I'm wondering what you just said now. Is that something that you formally do in your academy? Like you have sort of coaching and try to help students set things up like what you're saying? Or
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I say it as, I don't share it as like, this is my rule, but I
right.
think sort of subconsciously that's fed
Okay.
into.
But you don't have it set up like week 1, week 2, or the baby steps you're talking about. It's more general advice and hoping that you can inspire them to do it this way.
Yeah, so for my two courses that I offer at the moment, they're both broadly based on speaking English, because that's the one aspect I found a lot of students lacking, is speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more about giving them tasks, and then these tasks can be adapted to their level, but then they have to go and do this task either as a video or a voice recording, and then they send it back to me, and then I give them feedback on it.
Mm-hmm.
So then with each student you can say, well, I probably wouldn't be this harsh, but I can say, I don't think you've fully reached your full potential. You sent me a 10-second video, whereas I know that you're capable of sending a 1-minute video or 1.5-minute video. And what I find is by like the end of the month, people are sending me like 7-minute videos of them talking, and I have to remind them, because I think maybe it's human nature that we downplay ourselves. We go, oh, I still think I'm not very good. And I have to remind them, say, look back at your first video. You strung together 2 sentences,
Yeah.
and now you're speaking for 7 minutes. Like, I think that's an achievement. I think that's something that we should applaud and congratulate you on.
You said, and I think this is so important, and everyone who teaches English and anyone learning English would agree. You said that speaking is a skill that so many students lack. But why is that, do you think? Is there one reason, or are there different reasons, or are there some that students may think are important and are not as important, and others that maybe they need to be more aware of?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. And I don't think I have the perfect answer, because I do think maybe everyone is different.
Yeah, sure.
But I do find that a lot of students then often they'll be listening to the radio in English, they'll be listening to podcasts, they'll be watching TV shows, they might even be reading a book in English before they go to bed. They'll be on social media, following teachers like us on Instagram and YouTube, which is awesome. And I think that's fantastic. Like, keep on doing that. But what that is, you're just consuming English. You're not actually producing it. Your input and output balance is slightly off. And I think therefore you may be working on your listening skills perhaps and your reading skills, but then you need to then go and put that into practice. You then need to actually start speaking English for it to actually stay in your brain, for you to feel confident with the language. So that's what I think is often the problem, is that the input and the output, if you imagine it as a scale, it's like this instead of more balanced. But what about you, Jason? What do you think?
Well, I agree with what you said. I wanted to ask you about the input. Do you feel in those situations, the student, because it seems like you're describing someone who's really inspired. You're saying somebody who's getting a lot of input, because another problem obviously is students who don't get enough input. So you're talking about an issue where somebody's really motivated. I'm asking you if this is what you're imagining. Someone who's really motivated, like watching a TV series, got really hooked on a podcast, or something, and doing a lot of things in English, but not producing it. So you find that those students, like, what would your advice be? Would it be they need to be in situations where they're, communicating directly with people, because it's not always that easy? Or you mean also what you're saying, like making a voice recording, making a video? Like, is that when you say speaking opportunities, are you just talking about in person or?
Both, because absolutely. I mean, in a dream world, everyone would have access to someone who wanted to speak English and they could communicate. But of course, that's not always possible. I think if it is an option, then I definitely think it is worth investing in a course or in a teacher or something. But I do know that's not always the case. But I think it is about then, say if you watch a 30-second Instagram video and they've told you a new expression, instead of just watching it and going, "Oh, that's a good expression," what are you going to do about it? So write it down, record it, make your own sentence up with it, record your sentence, play it back, listen to that video again. Have I pronounced those words the same, or am I losing my pronunciation on one of the sounds? Or no, it's great, perfect. So then you're actually producing the language. So you're what you've consumed, what you've heard, you're then putting it into practice. And I think it does take more effort, for sure. But I think if you're really dedicated and really motivated and you're really conscious of your reason why you're learning English, then it shouldn't feel too much like a challenge, because learning should be fun. It should be enjoyable.
No. Then I really agree. I think there's, unfortunately, maybe you found this to be true too, too many teachers out there who kind of push students, go out and speak English, as if it's as simple as that, right? I certainly didn't think that's where you were going with it. But when you talk about a student recording themselves, maybe comparing it to what the person said in the series, or like you said, somebody in the Instagram video, doing it again, watching it again. To me, that's still practicing, right? That's getting the meaningful repetition that is so important, whether it's listening to the same thing again, reading the same thing again, and in this case, speaking same way again, as opposed to the performance only. Because to me, performance would be, again, just like saying, well, the only way you're going to really make progress is if you go speak to people, and that's that moment where you are, and we said to be able to do that requires confidence that you should come from the practice. It's like, you're not going to go have a, violin recital before you've done a lot of practice. But of
Yeah.
course, when you're practicing the violin, you are producing. You are not just listening
Mhm.
to the violin or reading about violin. So it's speaking has to happen, but is it speaking that's in the practice
Mhm.
mode where you're more
Yeah.
safe and you can repeat and you can make mistakes? Of course, you make mistakes when you perform, but the idea is you make a lot more mistakes while you practice so that you're not making as many mistakes, and that's where the confidence comes. Oh wow, I didn't make that many mistakes, and then you keep going. So
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think for you, because obviously I know, I know, I think that you go to schools and you often work with kids and stuff. And so, do you find that is that what you're trying to put across to them about having more confidence to make a mistake and accept
Hmm.
that that's normal, that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what I'm trying to do is, I'm sort of the out of class practice guy. So it's not, follow what I do instead of going to English class or something. It's on the contrary. Like, in the English classroom, that's not practice. That's, in my opinion, that's more communicative activities where, I mean, it would be nice if it could be practiced, but there's not enough time to do a lot of repetition. And, in most cases, teachers are, asking you to get up in front of the class or what's your opinion, and that's great. But if you feel nervous and you feel like I don't really have the English in my head to do that, right, what happens? You're bored, you're distracted, you think you're stupid, you hate English, right? So what's missing is not usually need to study the language more or learn about the language, but to get that target language in your head to be able to succeed in that activity in the classroom, which is like succeeding at a store or, in a job interview. It's the same type of thing. And it's kind of pressuring people to perform before
Yeah,
they practiced is so
yeah,
I'm trying to, what I'm trying to do is, if I get those kids hooked on my songs so that they're listening at home, doing something out of class, then when they get to class, oh, I remember that word. I remember how to
yeah.
say it. I remember that grammar.
Yeah,
And then the teachers obviously can do a lot more, and the students
yeah.
can do a lot more.
And
Because
I think that's interesting what you say as well, because it's kind of, it's about getting the student motivated in any way, and obviously you're going down the songs and the performance and the arts route as well. And it's not going to suit every single person, because some people might be like, absolutely, this is not for me. But it's about trying to engage with the students and be like, you should be motivated to learn English and it should be fun for you.
right,
And
right.
it shouldn't feel like a chore. It shouldn't feel like a job every single day that you've got to do it. You should find some sort of enjoyment from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I'm trying to do is be a bridge to the real world, which is what textbooks traditionally do. But now, because of the internet, we can be those bridges, and that's really exciting. And that's why a lot of textbooks aren't working and a lot of traditional methods aren't working because
Yeah,
the real person that's that bridge. So I've
yeah,
all the time. I mean, it's like you said, they could say, well, I don't want to learn through songs, but when I go, it's also it's comedy, it's conversation. They ask me questions. There's a lot
yeah,
about American culture and stuff like that goes on. So the way that can be a bridge is then sometimes students will send me messages. Oh, because of you, I'm now watching the news in English, or I'm playing this video game in English.
yeah.
That's the bridge, right?
That's amazing.
And it's rare that a textbook is going to
Yeah,
inspire. And a classroom teacher could, but classroom teachers, you talked about this at the beginning. It's kind of overloaded with have
yeah,
to hurry people here to there, and it's typically 3 hours a week. And if the students aren't getting the practice, then that 3 hours a week either is too much about studying English or too much about performing before you're ready, and
yeah.
that's the problem I find.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I don't think it's necessarily that one person's fault. I think it's just
Mm,
the way the system is
mm,
now and how people are graded and how
yeah.
you're labeled either smart or stupid, really. I think that's just
Yeah,
where it falls down. And I think then that destroys people's confidence and it
absolutely.
destroys people's motivation moving forward, because they think, oh, I failed before, why should I try again?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is
It's
hard.
bad. I wonder if you ever think about this too, like when I'm feeling kind of cynical or pessimistic about institutions and the systems. It hasn't been very long since in any country in the world where English has been thought of more as, practical skill, a communicative skill. I mean, teachers, for decades who have been pushing that, but now it really is like you learn how to use a computer, you learn how to use English. It's not, so you can communicate with people in Korea or Brazil, not to, be British or be American.
Yeah.
Like that's all changed. So, when you look at how languages have been taught, it's been about studying them, like translation, not been about you're going to go out and use them. I mean, we're talking about a very short period of time compared to centuries and centuries of it. So I think a good analogy I find is like computer science versus, using a computer every day. So it makes sense that these transitions, right? Like most people just want to know how to use the computer. They don't need to know all of the things behind it. So when you see curricula and you see, syllabi teachers who are still doing a kind of like, let's get inside the language and see how it works. It's kind of like the computer science idea, because you're like studying and then you have to explain rules and show that about how it works. And it's like, wait, that's But the reason I'm so optimistic is, it makes sense that it was like that for so long. It wasn't really that you're going to need it tomorrow or need it.
And I think that's it. I think it's probably like the power of the internet as well has changed things, for sure. And I think almost schools have been left behind slightly. They're trying to catch up to how maybe people are learning and how people are actually getting their source, that all their knowledge is online. We're all online nowadays, or most of us are. And I do think the schools maybe have to reevaluate at some point, especially like how they test. And I do think it is about learning a subject whilst you're doing another subject. It's that sort of content learning.
And things are going in that direction for sure. And I imagine that's why you're finding success with, even if people could get confused about what you mean by arts, that, people are gravitating towards. And the best way, as far as I'm concerned, in my experience, seeing people learn a language, I mean, learn English, but I think it's true of any language. They're not trying to learn, they're doing something and learning English along the way, right? So they're just so into traveling, and they get hooked on this podcast, and it's in English, but it's just the best one for them. So English is sort of, you're learning on the way. Or I meet students all the time who are addicted to games online, and to do better at the game, they have to watch gamer videos, tutorials. They don't, for a moment, I'm trying to learn English. And
that's awesome.
They wind up with more of the language up here and more confidence to use it. That's happening more and more thanks to the internet.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's amazing. I think that's incredible. And I definitely think it's the right way. For me personally, I think that's the right way to be learning. Is almost learning without realizing you're learning.
I have a phrase, and I keep thinking somebody else said it, but I swear to God, I can't find it. So I should probably, trademark it. Learning when you're not looking.
Say that again.
Learning when you're not looking.
Oh, learning when you're not looking. I lost you on the last words. I like that. I like that.
Learning and looking, so it's kind of nice.
I might write that down.
You just said it the same way. Learning when you're not thinking that you're learning. No,
it's true. It's true. It's the best way, in my opinion. It's the best way to learn. Right. I'm sure that people would disagree, but that's how.
I don't think. I mean, if people disagree, then you maybe have to just frame it differently, like intrinsic motivation. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. And that's what we're talking about, like those examples, right? The learning when you're not looking is when you're intrinsically motivated by whatever it is you're doing, not to try to get better at the other thing. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
powerful.
I want to ask you about Instagram and that type of platform that's so much more active now for learners than like Facebook is, and even YouTube, as far as just the type of quick exchanges that can go on, the lives, the comments and everything else. Do you what do you feel is really different about what you're doing there and what you're doing with your courses? Because I think this is a question I got into recently with David, whom we both know. I think it's really important where there are teachers out there who want to do one of these two things or both. You know, they want to teach online, have their own courses and make money, or they want to do, you know, social media. And we talked last time with David about how they're not necessarily the same students, right? The ones who pay for the course are not necessarily the ones. So I'm not really interested in that conversation with you as much as just, you know, what do you feel is different about what you do when you're doing Instagram, interacting on Instagram, and when you're working with your students on your courses?
Well, I think the main difference is the time, because obviously when I'm doing a video or whatever, post on Instagram, that's just one, it's filmed and it's edited and it's prepared for, and that's more going for a mass audience. You know, I'm trying to reach as many people as I possibly can, and I'm trying to make it as fun as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm working with someone in my course, I'm working just with that one person. So I'm not trying to reach other people. So it's not necessarily trying to teach that person one expression or one phrase or one learning tip. It's about helping them with their problem or with their weaker area. So I've kind of view Instagram more as a good way to reach people, a good way to get English Arts Academy's name out there, and also to meet other teachers, to get some students from there as well. And it's about having fun. Like I love it. I do love being on Instagram, and I think the opportunities that's come from it have been incredible. But I think the Carys that you see on Instagram is quite different to the Carys that you would have as your tutor. When you have me as your tutor, or your English mentor, I hope I'm going into a bit more in depth with you and what you need help with. And helping you specifically, rather than just trying to show you that learning should be fun and enjoyable, and look at me having a bit of a laugh on screen, doing maybe something a bit silly to kind of prove that it should be enjoyable. So I think that's probably my main difference with it.
Great. And another important question, I'm sure on the minds of people watching this right now, what would you say is the most important factor contributing to your success on Instagram? Like, how did you build up the following that you have? So if you don't know, Carys has quite a big following on Instagram. Is there like a secret sauce, or is there like something, did you plan it, or you kind of saw what worked and went with it, or what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, so I started Instagram in October 2019. And I say this story to my students quite a bit, really, because I think it's kind of relevant to learning English. Like, I'd wanted to start teaching online for years, and I just put it off because I kept postponing it, because I was like, oh, what if people laugh at me? What if I get a bad response? What if I'm judged? And now, like, my only thought is I wish I'd started it earlier, especially with YouTube as well, to be fair. But regarding to like a trick, no, I feel like, no, I wish I had one. I think I've worked really hard at it, I would say. Like, I remember before I launched it, I said to myself, right, my first video goes out on the 1st of October. And I have to say, my first video is shocking. I have a script on my knee, and I keep like reading the script.
Someone with an arts background, somebody that had acting classes. It's normal. It's normal for everyone to feel like that.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, no one is perfect, you know, so no one expects you to be perfect speaking English. But yeah, so then I remember before I did my first post, I scheduled, like, I planned and I prepared 3 months worth of content, and I had my calendar, like a poster on my fridge, and I just ticked them off after every one, and I made sure I think I'd film maybe 2 or 3 weeks in advance, just so I wouldn't chicken out, and just so I was prepared.
I'm just going to stop you. This is so important, and I just want to make sure we stay here for a second. So are you saying that it's the I'm not surprised you worked hard, but people can work hard in the wrong ways. So do you think that it was that consistency, like making the content in advance, scheduling it? Like, do you think that connects directly to getting more followers? And if it does, in what way? I think I happen to think it does. So I'm wondering if you found that and why.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I really don't think I have the algorithm down, and I think the algorithm changes constantly.
Right.
But I
This
think
is what we're trying to do without knowing anything about the algorithms, right?
of course, yeah. But I think definitely, because I instantly created, I don't want to say the word brand, but maybe a consistency is a better word. So every Tuesday, I released a top tip Tuesday. Every Thursday, I released a tongue twister. Every Sunday, I released a phrase. It's changed now, but that's what my schedule was at the start. Every Sunday was a phrasal verb. Every Wednesday was a word of the week. And I stuck to it. So I think people could see like, oh, she's not flaky. She's going to be there with her video on these days, and she's going to deliver.
Well, that's what traditionally, that's what a subscription is. And that's what, it's interesting to think about, because I think, many of us, myself included, have made mistakes thinking like, just kind of throw things out there when you're inspired. And if people like you, they'll be there. And it's not true. Really, it isn't true. It's the hard work, and it's putting yourself in the shoes of somebody who's thinking like, oh, I want to, on Monday, I'm going to do this. So I remember from last, and that's how people, I think, respond. Right? Yeah,
I do. I think so. And I think the way I try and view it is who I follow or who I subscribe to, what makes me follow them. And, for me, it's trusting someone. Like I have to kind of like the person as well. And I have to kind of have an element of trust as much as you can trust the face behind the screen sort of thing. And I think consistency is key. I definitely think if you're starting out on social media, you should have a plan for at least 2 months ahead of where you want to go to. I do think that helps. And then also you have the little tips as well of like hashtags, asking people to collaborate with you, asking people to share your video, save your video. I do think there's there's little tips as well that you can do. But I also think, it's finding what works for you.
Of those tips, I mean, not to go too deeply into this, but is there any, or are there any that you think are more effective than others? Because I know a lot of people are like, is it hashtags? Is it what time of day I post? Is there anything, just in your experience, I know we're not saying this is going to be true for everybody, but something, like hashtags, does it really make a difference or not? Because a lot of the most popular hashtags can be the worst, right? Because then you wind up in this pool where it's so big that nobody will ever see that. So what do you think about either that or another tip that you think is useful?
I think for me, what helped me at the start was definitely more than anything was being shared. So it was reaching out to other teachers, but not reaching out and being like, share my page, like trying to build like a relationship with them, asking for advice, being like, do you have any tips? And then once people see your work, and at least you have maybe a catalogue of 30, 40 posts, people can go, okay, she's good, so therefore I'm going to share her work. So that really helped me, people sharing who were slightly larger.
Share in stories, for example, on Instagram, because Instagram you can directly share, so it's the stories.
Yeah. So I found if someone would share it and tag English Arts Academy, that helped me grow a lot.
Great.
And then I think definitely the one that's maybe underrated is your video being saved. I read a really interesting point in a book actually, which has stuck with me. And I don't know if this is true, but this is something that's really, really stuck with me from advice. And I think it was from the Copywriter's Handbook book. And he said, the way to succeed on social media is to have shareable content. And the way to have shareable content is to deliver something that causes an emotion. So whether this emotion is happiness, humor, shock, horror, whatever. And I think that's true. If I think for myself, the most content I will share is something that's made me laugh or reminded me of a friend, and I think this is so you, so I send it to them. Then someone else has been, it's being shared. I think that is something that stuck with me about trying to cause an emotion within your niche. It'd be weird if I suddenly tried to scare people, but trying to cause someone to maybe find my video funny just slightly, or whatever. I think that's key.
I think that's right, and that brings me to another question, which is what do you think about TikTok? Because what you just described is, I think, why TikTok is so successful. I mean, there are different reasons why it and platforms like that are getting more successful. But I think one of them is that like quick emotion thing and that sharing thing where people are sharing TikTok videos off of TikTok to people who don't have TikTok at a rate I've never seen anything like that before. And I guess that's great for TikTok because people will join
Yeah.
TikTok.
Do you know, to be honest, I've never ever been on TikTok. And I know
Wow.
that's
I don't know whether at this point, I think like a couple months ago, I would have said, good for you, me too. And now I'm like wondering, should I say that anymore? Yeah, I mean, people have not stopped telling me to go on TikTok for so long. I avoided it. And I just started a few days ago, and I didn't start with the way I probably should, like you're saying, to planning content. But it is a format that's perfect for arts, the arts, and people
yeah.
like you and me. I
Are you
mean,
enjoying it? Like, are you?
no, I mean, I'm not doing it enough. I mean, that's my
Oh,
problem. I mean, you could have like a sort of therapy session with me about why I don't do enough in social media. I mean, I definitely have always treated it like this sort of secondary thing. Luckily, I have enough work to be able to do that. So I'm not. But yeah, I mean, I think I could get into it, and I put a video on there a couple of days ago. It has 700 views on it, and I have only a few followers. So that means people who aren't following you are seeing.
that's amazing. Yeah. And I think that maybe part of the problem is, like I don't know, obviously I don't know your reason for not being on it previous, but for me it's that, oh, do I need this addiction in my life?
Exactly. And how many platforms can you be on at the same time and everything else? And you're doing really well on Instagram. So I would say that TikTok is not something not that you asked me for advice on this, but you wouldn't necessarily need to do it. You can do it in tandem, like David, who we mentioned before, is huge on TikTok. I realize.
I see. That's awesome. Yeah.
But I do think, I mean, you can also have TikTok and it automatically shares to your Instagram, and that's all.
Yeah.
I think the longer you wait, the more it'll just sort of happen. Is what I think.
Yeah.
But it definitely is. It's just the arts thing. I mean, the reason I brought this up in the first place, this idea that I can share a video and someone can take it and put themselves in it and like act with me. It's very much like an art.
Creative, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it started out as a music based.
Yeah.
Only about music and singing and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and I think definitely, like, because if you say I've seen videos from TikTok, I'm not on it, but of course I've seen some. And what people, you can't avoid them. And what people create, I think, is mind blowing. Yeah. Like, I find it insane, like the editing skills people have, the imagination people have. I do think it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Yes, my word. Yeah.
So the thing about it that is the other thing people say, they say you should get on TikTok because, well, first of all, people are using my songs on TikTok, so I should probably be there if they're using my stuff.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool to go on there and find stuff that people are doing with my songs. So, but the other thing about it is that it really, people say this to you all the time, it's all about, you're talking about relax, repeat, remember, like what are the things you naturally repeat? And one of those things, besides a song, besides a game, is a sort of viral video that's very short. And if that viral video you watched in a loop 10 times and it has functional English in it that you need for your life, you're going to remember it. And so the reason I decided to stay on it is because I made a promise to myself that I was only going to really learn French when it felt, I mean, I speak French. I mean, to go to another level of French. I've been speaking French for years, but I'm not going to try to get myself there by taking, because I don't need it so much. Everyone wants to speak English to be around. But with TikTok, you see this stupid video, they're repeating stuff in French, you watch it again, it's sticking in my head the way it would in the song. So I said, either I'm going to get into French music, I'm going to get into a French series, something's going to happen so I can sort of talk about that experience, because that's what I'm telling people, it's the intrinsic motivation. So yes, it's addictive, it's not the best intrinsic motivation. It's bordering, right? But I'm not trying to learn French. The video's so funny, and I'm also getting excited because I understand it, because I've watched it 10 times, which is what I needed to do, right, to understand it.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually.
Like, wait a second, okay, I could help more people learn English this way.
Yeah, definitely. And as long as I think you don't take it too seriously and you do have those healthy boundaries, why not?
I'm
You
not
know,
sure
go
that, I'm
for
not
it.
sure there are healthy. That's the problem.
Well, that's
I'm
true.
definitely not here to report from my
Yeah.
experience that it's not really as addictive and it doesn't have detrimental. I don't know. I have to be, and maybe it's my age too.
But how about do you find then YouTube? Because you're like
Uh,
you're huge on YouTube. So is
I
that where
was
you?
at one point. I'm not anymore at all. Well, my story is very unusual, but I will say that I'm not sure what you mean about YouTube, but I think I have an idea when you said you wish you got into it earlier, especially
Mhm.
YouTube. I mean, when I was lucky when I got into YouTube, the way that maybe someone in 5 years will look at you and say you were lucky to get on Instagram.
Right, right.
I mean, there was a time where they're being friendlier with the algorithms and organic sharing,
Hmm.
led to higher position in the feed.
Yeah.
That's really not the case anymore. I mean, that was before YouTube introduced advertising. So
Yeah.
I was on there for once they introduced advertising, the game changed. I mean, it was actually was in people in my favor. So I did very well when it changed, but then I just didn't take advantage of the work I needed to
Yeah.
keep it going. So I
Yeah.
fell
You
behind.
chose a different avenue, sort of thing.
Yeah, and if you try to get in now
Yeah.
without putting in tons of work or money or both, to pay
It's difficult.
for
Yeah.
advertising, for them to advertise you, not for you to advertise for them.
Yeah.
This is the thing about YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think, but I feel like it's a job, something like that. I mean, Instagram is too, but YouTube especially because it's more of a direct money making source. I mean, if you're going to really make money from it, not just use it as a way to kind of share stuff here and there and build
Yeah.
a following and bring people to your website, you have to treat it like a job.
Yeah. But yeah, for sure. Exactly. I think that's completely yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. It is a job. And I think before I was ever online, I would watch a video and I wouldn't think twice about it. Whereas now when I'm producing videos and you put the work in and you do the prep, the filming, the editing, the trying to figure out the algorithm, all the right
Yeah,
tactics
it's
alongside of it.
the insights. That's the big one. I mean,
Yeah, it's changed my mind. And now I watch a video and I'm like, well done you, because I realize the hard work that's gone into it. And I do think exactly, it's definitely a job, and it's a job that pays for a few people, but I definitely think maybe it's I don't know. I started on YouTube less than a year ago, and I wish I'd started on it way sooner, for sure. It's a grind now, and I do it because I
I
enjoy it.
avoid it now. I've avoided. I'm
Do
scared,
you? Are you? Yeah.
traumatized by my experience on it. Well, I just sort of took it for granted. I'm just gonna, sort of just keep sailing along.
Yeah.
I
And then
did.
it changed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I didn't. But I don't have a lot of regrets about it because I also know that I'm not the kind of person who would have put in the work.
Yeah.
I've no, I have to drag myself to try to think about marketing and think about who am I sending this to and how am I horrible.
Yeah. And it is. It's just about the avenue you choose, which is right for you to go down, for sure. And I do think one thing that's important to remember with all these social medias is it's not yours. You're renting a space.
That's
essentially.
Right. That's right.
Which I always think is important to remember.
It's hugely important. Yeah. If you are here live, if you have been waiting patiently to ask a question or make a comment, thank you, and you're welcome to do so. Hi, Ms. Carys Cooke. Can you show us your IG page? Well, that's good because I was going to share a couple, like your website and Instagram, just as on the screen. So let's do that right now. So this is the website for English Arts Academy. And from here, obviously you can get information about your courses. Can they go to your social media here, or you don't send people that way? You send here.
Yeah, you can. Okay. Yeah, you can.
So definitely check out the website. It's really nicely designed. Did you do that, or did you have somebody help you, or?
My partner, he works, so I do all the creative stuff and he works behind the scenes.
That's another thing.
Quite patiently waiting. So he's the man with the the gadgets.
Try to have a partner, whether it's, you know, an intimate partner or just a business partner that can do the things you aren't as good at.
I'm very, very lucky, and sometimes because he doesn't. He's very rarely on screen. He doesn't, but that's his choice. I'm not being like, you can't come on screen, but he does all the editing. So I'm very, very, very grateful.
Here is the English Arts Academy Instagram page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So really, really great short videos where Carys is acting in a way that doesn't make it feel like she's acting, makes it feel like she's just sort of with you, explaining, giving examples of really high frequency vocabulary and functional situations. And that's why I love what you do so much, because I'm just obsessed with, you know, language corpora and what are the most common ways to say this and that, because the books are so far off the mark often.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you can connect with YouTube here. How do you do that?
So if you click on the teachercarys.com, the blue link in my bio.
Here, you can go to YouTube from.
And not from here, because these are just my highlights. So if you go,
oh, yes, of course. For a second, I got scared and then kind of excited. Wait, I can link from YouTube now. Like, I'm not surprised.
Have to click on the bio. That's teacher Carys. Oh yeah, you can go back.
Let's go back, and I remember it was here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
YouTube. So also check out YouTube for English Arts Academy.
Yeah, that's my page. Yeah, great. That's like, I think they're kind of similar to my Instagram. They're just slightly more in-depth videos.
Nice. Somebody's saying, nice work. Just curious, how did you choose your video theme, and do you have an overall plan? I think by video theme, like the types of videos you make, right? Like you have a sort of theme or a format. Yeah,
interesting question. What's my video theme? No, I mean, I think you have to try and stay current. So now I am moving more onto Reels on Instagram because that is what is being promoted, and that's what Instagram are pushing.
Right.
So I definitely think it's about staying with the times as much as you can and being aware of what other people around you are sharing or what's popular with Instagram. Regarding what I wanted to share, I'm quite open to ideas because obviously, as we talked about, I'm into the arts. I knew I wanted them to try and be creative, and I actually thought maybe there was this like gap in the market than just sort of a sit down sort of typical lesson. So that's my biggest enjoyment, is when I can manage to do like a short skit or short, I don't want to say acting, but you know, a skit. Let's stick to skit.
Performing. I love that word.
Yeah. That's probably my overall plan, definitely. I think, whilst growing English Arts Academy behind the scenes.
It's working. Keep it up.
Thank you so much.
It was such a pleasure having you on Featured Teachers. Thank you so much, Carys.
Yeah, thank you so much to you, Jason. I love what you do. I think you first came onto my radar around 18 months ago with your famous song. So yeah, I've admired you for a while. So thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed it.
You're very welcome. Yeah, no, we did too. It seems the people who are here, thank you again for coming live, if you're here live. And if you're watching this, as most of you probably are, asynchronously at some other time, some other place, thank you for watching. And if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the thread on Facebook or wherever else you see this video, and we'll try to answer your questions and comments if we see them. And have a wonderful day, Carys.
Yeah, thank you so much. You too. Have a nice afternoon.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, well, thanks so much to the American TESOL Institute for making Featured Teachers happen, and we'll see you next month for another session.
Perfect. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, see ya. Salud.